All right. Good. Good afternoon. And welcome to the Dean's Forum. Today is September the 25th. This is our first forum for the semester, for the fall semester. And hopefully we get to have a nice forum today. I'm looking forward to next month and the month after that. The purpose of this forum is for collaboration, as well as a way to share information that is pertinent to the institution as a whole. That means for faculty, staff, students, and all interested parties of Weatherford College. But before we begin today, I do have a question for you. I don't know how many of you in here, of course I know some of you in here are very familiar with Little Rock 9. Little Rock 9. I don't know if some of the students are aware of it. Little Rock 9 was a group of 9 African American students enrolled in Little Rock Central High School in 1957. And today, September 25th, marked 60 years of that event when those students were allowed to enroll in Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas. And of course, that situation led to a lot of turmoil in the United States at the time, especially in the South. 3 years prior to that, in the year 1954, there was the landmark ruling by the Supreme Court, the Brown versus Board of Education in Topeka, Kansas. These are all things I'm sure that your government and history professors will share with you guys along the way. So in 1954, that landmark ruling, Brown versus the Board of Education, was when the Supreme Court unanimously ruled that segregation was illegal and that all schools should be integrated. And then, of course, the young attorney at the time who led that fight and won that landmark ruling was Thurgood Marshall. Thurgood Marshall went on to, he was an African American, then went on to become the first black Supreme Court judge 13 years later in 1967. And I'm proud to say that the law school named after him at Texas Southern University in Houston, the Thurgood Marshall School of Law, is where my daughter graduated from a couple of years ago. And today, my daughter is in St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Island, where she is doing her judicial clerkship with the Superior Court of the U.S. Virgin Island. Sad to say that she went through the 2 episodes of the hurricane, Hurricane Irma, and then followed by Hurricane Maria. It was devastating for her because right now the whole U.S. Virgin Island, including Puerto Rico, of course, as we all know, have no light, no electricity, no drinking water. People are just rationing things and living at a very substandard level, way worse than that of a third world country. But I'm proud to say that I spoke with my daughter this morning. She's one of the less than 1% in U.S. Virgin Islands that still maintain some connectivity in their cell phones. So from time to time, we will get her, she will call in to update us. And this morning, she called to remind me about this Little Rock 9. She said, "Dad, you know what today is?" I said, "Of course I know." I am a very good student of history, even though I'm not a historian myself. So I promised I was going to mention this today, and I'm sure when she have time, she probably, if she had connectivity, she probably be watching this on YouTube right now from the U.S. Virgin Islands, if she can get through to us today. So that being said, let me get into our discussion for today, which is emotional intelligence. We are going to go through a few different topics. I'm not going to spend the whole time for us talking about emotional intelligence, but just on a very quick note, before I open it up for you to participate or ask questions or comment on this, I will start by saying this, that emotional intelligence is your ability to recognize your emotions and that of others, as well as ability to manage it in relationships. It is a hallmark of great leadership. Several works were published on emotional intelligence before now famous Daniel Goleman, who is now leading the topic of emotional intelligence. There are few models of emotional intelligence, but the model that fits what we could or what we would like to accomplish as an institution is what is called the mixed model. The mixed model, which outlines 5 constructs of what makes a good leader. And these 5 models, or this mixed model, was published by the Harvard Law Review. And the 5 constructs of this model are, number 1, self-awareness, knowing one's emotions, strengths, and weaknesses is important. Number 2, self-regulation, controlling one's disruptive emotions and impulses. Number 3, social skill, moving people in the right direction. Number 4, empathy, which is considering others' feelings. And finally, number 5, motivation, the drive or desire to achieve. When you have all these 5 constructs and you try to learn them and formulate them very well and apply them appropriately, you will come out ahead. And this is what we want our environment or our campus to look like or to feel like. The relationship between faculty and staff, staff and staff, faculty and faculty, faculty and students, students and staff, and students to students. We want you to acquire these skills. These skills are not your IQ. They have nothing to do with your IQ. You could have a very high IQ, but without emotional intelligence, you cannot be a good leader. You tend to fail. Okay? So with this, we can establish something good for ourselves as an institution. So during our Weatherford College in-service that we have for the faculty and staff, we had a guest speaker that came to talk to us about colors, and for you to identify what your color is. A very inspirational and motivating speaker, but without EI, without emotional intelligence, there could be, without emotional intelligence, even with your colors, you could fall short of being a very viable leader. So, the question today is, for those of you who participated in the color test, if you know what your color is, and I'm sure some of you have read about emotional intelligence over the course of the summer, since this was an assignment given to you before the summer. I hope you read it. So at this time, I'm going to open up the floor for you to engage in a dialogue or discussion of some sort about emotional intelligence. So, where do we start? And who start off with this discussion? I would like anyone to take charge. Otherwise, I will just call you and ask you to volunteer to take charge. Yes, Dr. Overstreet.
I have a question to the group, and that is, what role do you think our preoccupation with cell phones and texting might have on EQ?
Very good question. What effect do you think that testing? Now, one of the studies that came out says that we've always associated the current generation that they are multitasking because they can be on their cell phone testing and talking to you and do so many other things. But the study that came out said that's not true, that you cannot multitask. There's going to be some deficit somewhere along the line if you don't put all your energy into what you're doing one at a time. And so, there is no other studies here to dispute that, but that's just some of the recent studies. I will think that multitasking does not in any way contribute to your emotional intelligence. Yes?
I think that for your emotional intelligence, that persons that are on their cell phones, they need to be respectful to the other person, because whether they can multitask or not, the other person, they're being disrespectful for not giving them their undivided attention.
Very much so. That's where empathy comes into play. That's true, yes. You must respect the will of the other person, and you must put yourself in their place throughout your communication with them while you are listening. Yes, that is a very valid point. Yes. Yes.
Well, I think, that research, John Haynes with Challenge in Tarrant County, that comes and talks a lot about prevention for drug use with our Follow Our Lead program. He had talked about that. I mean, you could doodle or play with clay, that's okay, but doing something like that, you can't have that duality of awareness. And I just thought it impacts social skills, self-regulation. I think the research shows that once you do something, we hold our breath until that electronic click or whatever completes. So we're like holding our breath, so we're kind of shutting down, and there's no kind of self-regulation. It's, I always remind my students that when they're doing all this, breathe, because we just kind of naturally hold our breath, which isn't good for oxygen to the brain. So there's a lot of, it's a good communication tool, but I think there's a lot of trade-offs.
Very good, true. Yes. Yes.
Oh, kind of a switching that slightly, Kimin sort of mentioned something to me. Going back to your question, ma'am. It seems like when you ask the question, what were going through my mind is like, how does texting and all the social media affect one in terms of their social behavior and emotional intelligence, in terms of, would that help them contribute to them being more self-centered or less self-aware, less aware of others around them? So that's what I'm kind of asking myself, is that what you intended?
Well, actually, this comes out of a conversation in my class. And, they were talking about discomfort with face-to-face communication, and especially, telephone conversation. And, we talked about nonverbal and verbal communication, and how a larger portion of a message is with your facial expression and posture and tone of voice, all of the things that don't come through in this way. And so when you said social skills and empathy, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking, well, because that's a new hurdle. I think that if people aren't used to that, in essence, it's easy to have a constant monologue rather than a dialogue. Because if you text me, I don't have to text you back. Until I'm ready. So that can be good and bad, but that's really what I was thinking.
Actually, on that line, the new studies now, Goldman and some of his partners in this research, they are now embarking on a different model. Now we call it not just all emotional intelligence, but social intelligence. So now we have emotional intelligence and social intelligence. That is what the model that is new. So I will encourage you guys to look up on those two factors: emotional intelligence versus social intelligence, and we'll see how we go, how we can put them together and move from there. Yes. Any other comment? Yes, sir.
The 5 constructs that you enumerated, to me, presuppose a certain amount of proximity so that you can actually practice them. The use of the cell phone and remote communications makes at least a remove there that makes it improbable that you would learn those things and get the kind of feedback you need in order to develop your emotional IQ.
I agree. Yes, I agree. Yes.
And even with the self-regulation, you have people being extremely mean and bullying others using,
It's true.
those forms.
True.
It's easy to do that.
True.
And it's hard too whenever when you're reading a text or you're getting an email to know exactly, there's so many times you can be misconstrued by your email. Are they angry with me? Are they, what does this email actually mean? What are they trying to say? It just takes so much away from communication and being able to understand.
That is so very true. That is one of the areas too where we've seen a lot of lack of emotional intelligence is in our email communications with our colleagues and our students and along those lines. Yeah, those are the areas we would like to see a lot of improvement or show some sense of emotional intelligence is through our email communications, if not even face-to-face. All we're talking about here, face-to-face interaction. How do you, in a meeting of your peers, how do you communicate? Do you talk to your peers? Do you address them the same way you would like them to address you? Are you comfortable with the way you talk to them? Would you be glad for them to talk back to you in the same manner? The same way you communicate with your students, would you like them to respond back to you in the same manner? So those are the things we are talking about here. By establishing this, being self-aware of this emotional intelligence, that makes you a better communicator. And we tend to achieve a very good outcome at the end of it. Yes?
Yeah, communication is talking and learning, and one of the things is reading body language, learning to read body language, because what is the person really saying to you? They may be saying no, but if you don't, if your communication is strictly used with a tool, you're not learning to get that, read the real story.
That there is very, very true about body language. And again, in fact, next month, during our forum next month, I'm going to have Dr. Norma Jones, one of our speech instructors, come to give a presentation. She normally give presentation to different organizations about business trips, those taking business trips overseas, how they interact with people of different culture, how to be able to go over there and be able to strike a deal. The body language, how you communicate, the verbiage you use in those communications, very, very important. Otherwise, a lot of them come out empty without being successful. So yes, body language is a key factor. Yes?
Coming off of that, I've taken a business principles class, and so I've been really aware of, we were talking about the body language and the communication and to make yourself aware of it. And I wasn't aware how, it was just like how many times I glanced down at my cell phone when someone's talking to me, or what that shows to them. And so I would just encourage, if you think about it, maybe pay attention this next week and just see how you're acting, or how, it's I'm trying now to just I'm gonna make eye contact. I didn't realize I was doing these things until I started paying attention. So
very good. Very good. To our students, one of the things I will encourage you to do is, there are 2 courses you will take that can improve your emotional intelligence. One of them is sociology. Sociology is a good course to take. And the other one is cultural anthropology. Those 2 classes will mold you for you to understand different cultures, different people, and improve your communication skills, and as well as your emotional intelligence. I remember when I took cultural anthropology some years back, what will happen is that the instructor will send us all off to the campus, and maybe 2 or 3 of us at a time, say, go and observe students having a conversation. Try to identify international students. When an international student is talking to another international student, or when an international student is talking to an American student, just observe the body language and where the conversation starts and where the conversation ends. And of course, we have the space, the conversational space, which is right here. And of course, Americans can converse at a good conversational space, but a lot of some students from some other countries, they don't have that conversational space. They will be right in your face. So if they are talking to an American student, the conversation could start here, and as you watch them gradually, within 5, 15, 20 minutes, they are backing up. The conversation is over here, because the American student keep backing up for that conversational space. But the other person don't get it. Until finally, you let them know, hey, that you have to create that space. But it's not being rude. It's just the culture. So sometimes we have to separate culture from emotional intelligence, and go from that. Again, that's where the social intelligence is coming into play right now. We want to put them together. All right. All right. Any question from the back? Comment?
But if you can't recognize that your culture is not going to work in the culture you're in, is that not a sign of poor emotional intelligence?
Well, initially, no. There's always a forgiveness, because when you are new, when you transplant yourself to a different culture, it takes a little while for you to learn that culture. But if the problem persists, that you're not learning, then then we can qualify it as such, yes. All right. Any other comment? All right. Maybe we can shift gears. Dr. Atkins, do you have something to say?
No. I don't know, in listening, it's all about good communication. You've got to be able to perceive how you're coming across to others, and also perceive their emotions and the interplay of those emotions. That's the bottom line. Because so often students and instructors miscommunicate because the student hears the instructor saying something totally different than the instructor meant to say. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
Have you ever done that?
Yes, indeed.
Something else is the inflection in your voice that we don't get in email. And I can be sarcastic in person, but if I try to be sarcastic in email, people don't get it. They get upset with me, so I don't do that anymore. So
that is very true.
Well, and too, I also think that on the outside, a lot of the times, a person can seem very put together. Everything's going great, but when you start to talk to them a little bit more, you may find that there is something wrong with that person, that there is other things going on in their life, and if you can tune into that and be self-aware, and talk to that person and give them some time, whatever's going on, you're going to be able to find out a lot of what's going on with them. And I say that because of talking with students. I like to go into the lab. How are you doing today? How's it going? Some people will give me their whole story of how their life is falling apart, and some will act like they're okay and everything's perfect, but if you have the emotional intelligence, you can sense something's not right. Do you
That's
want to
correct.
come visit
Sure,
with me for
definitely.
just a second, or, and I think that's really important on a college campus, that we're recognizing, you know, are our students okay? Are our faculty members okay? Are our staff okay? I think we do a really good job with our staff. Sometimes I think we forget to take care of our students.
Thank you for saying that. It's a question of, again, not only you have to have the emotional intelligence, then you create trust in the process, okay? The fact that students open up to you is because of the trust you have established. And, but of course, for you to be able to establish that trust, you must have emotional intelligence. And that has been the hallmark of some of us on campus that have students flock into our offices to talk to us, right? And ask you for things just because you've established that relationship with them and that trust, right? It doesn't come easy. It's a lot of work, but you have to know how to do it. I would say my part of emotional intelligence stemmed from my training as a clinician, because I can ask 1 or 2 questions and you give me your life story. Okay, so I bet it's something that is the training I went through that helped me with that process. And then, of course, we can all learn to become emotionally intelligent by being patient. Being patient. That's all it takes, being patient. And of course, that's self-awareness and self-regulation, not to ability to control your own impulse, right? You really want to tell somebody off, but then when they start talking, your ability to control yourself and say, okay, and listen, yeah? Okay, any other comment on emotional intelligence? We have something else to introduce you to. Questions? Questions? Comments? None? All right. Let me embark on something a little different. This morning, I got this book right here, Redesigning America's Community Colleges. I got it from Dr. Cantrell, our Executive Vice President of Financial and Administrative Affairs. This is a very good book. I opened it and glanced through a few things in it. Let me just say very quickly, I'm going to read the inside acknowledgement here on this book, and then we address it. It says here that in the United States, 1,200 community colleges enroll over 10 million students each year. Nearly half of the nation's undergraduates, that's what, yet fewer than 40% of entrants complete an undergraduate degree within 6 years. This fact has put pressure on community colleges to improve academic outcomes for their students. Redesigning America's Community Colleges is a concise, evidence-based guide for educational leaders whose institutions typically receive short shrift in academic policy discussion. And it goes on to say it makes a compelling case that 2-year colleges can substantially increase their rates of student success if they are willing to rethink the ways in which they organize programs of study, support services, and instruction. All right, that being said, another thing I got from looking from the inside, and which I truly believe in, says that we have always teach our students on procedural rules rather than conceptual learning. Procedural learning rather than conceptual learning. What that means is this. A lot of us have come to assume that community college is maybe pre-college, as if the students are not prepared, they are underprepared from high school, and they come here to get ready for college. And that is a false notion. If we remove ourselves from that and begin to look at community college a little differently, yes, we do know that a lot of students in community colleges come from diverse backgrounds. Some are underprepared, some are very prepared. We know that. But it becomes our job in this modern day and time as staff and faculty members to begin to rethink our approach to community colleges. Our community college of this time is different from community colleges of some 20, 30, 40 years ago. We have to begin to learn. One of the things I've been talking to some of my faculty members is that we have to begin to teach our students instead of teaching our subject. Remember that. You teach your students and not teaching the subject. We already know that you are a master of your subject. We know that already. So why do you have to teach your subject to your students? Why don't you teach your students and make them learn the subject? So understanding and knowing your students will make you teach them better. What does that mean? It means we have to evolve. We have to evolve with time. And say, for example, when we're talking about, every time we talk about redesigning programs, the focus is always on mathematics and what? English. Mathematics and English all the time. Okay, instead of going to the classroom and teaching students about formula, this is the formula you need to achieve this goal, why don't you teach them the concept? Why don't you have a student say, instead of telling them what an isosceles triangle is, why don't you tell them to bring out their compass and draw for you an isosceles triangle to perfection? That's conceptual, right? That's conceptual. That is not procedural. They are not giving them the formula. Why don't we make the student think? Instead of just giving multiple choice questions here and there, pick your answer. Okay, we give assignment every week that is due. Why don't give an assignment that is going to make them write and research things that might take them 3, 4, 5 weeks to complete? That's conceptual. That's going to make them work hard and think through the whole process and learn it and know it. So we have to change. We have to evolve. And that's what this book is all about. I'm going to finish reading this book, and I'm going to go into this conference with Dr. Cantrell and some others of us. And when we come back from that conference in November, we are going to have a forum. And in that forum, we are going to begin the conversation as an institution on how to become a perfect institution rather than mediocre. I'm not saying we are mediocre, but I'm just saying that we can do better in what we do. Right? We can do better in what we do. And we have to challenge our students a little bit more. Instead of having your students in the classroom, you ask them questions, they give you one answer. Why can't you have them just complete a sentence? I do that in my classroom. What is your name? John. No. My name is John. Good. Make a sentence, because that is the way it works. I'm making you think through the process, right? Okay, so let's try to change, and this year is going to become something that we have to work across the board as an institution. We cannot allow ourselves to continue to be the same thing we were 10 years ago or 20 years ago. We have to find a way to change to achieve success. Your comment. I'll let you talk. Somebody talk to me.
I just want to make sure we're not
Yes.
we're not a solution looking for a problem.
No, I
Yes.
don't think we're a solution looking for a problem.
No.
I think as we grow,
Yes.
as students really understand what education is all about. I remember a few years ago when I did teach a class on human relations in the organization, and we talked about communication back and forth. One of them asked me, well, really, or I asked them, I said, what do you think education really is? And I said, I truly believe it's a preparation. It's only a preparation for life. I mean, it's a thirst, it's to build that thirst for knowledge.
Correct.
And that's what we're trying to do here.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes.
I read something that was interesting and disturbing. It was about students' locus of control, that it shifted from an internal locus to external. In other words, I don't have total control over what happens to me. External forces are controlling my destiny. I'd like to know why that shift is occurring. Now, I asked my class about it. They say it's technology. I don't know.
Okay.
But why do students now feel less in control about your destiny, about what happens after school, than previous generations?
Wow. Dr. Welch, you seem like you have a comment?
No, I don't feel that way at all. I feel that coming to college and doing the things that we're doing and preparing ourselves for our future is giving us the opportunity to be in control of our destinies. I think that if you don't take the opportunity and the time to prepare yourself, then you are leading yourself up for someone else to control your own destiny.
Absolutely.
I just think it's how you look at it.
Perhaps it's a byproduct of the crash, and it didn't matter how much you controlled your destiny, if there's just no jobs, there's just no jobs. So maybe as the economy recovers and the job market recovers and hopefully improves, as far as pay is concerned, that people perhaps that might shift again.
Well, all those are true. How about one of the things we do, one of the things you do when you come to college and we teach you is to we teach you how to, that's what we do. Once you come to college, you learn how to do this. And that's our job, to teach you how to do that. It doesn't come easy. It comes with headaches. Mm-hmm. But those headaches can be overcome. It's not going to kill you, but you have to learn how to do it. Only successful people can do this right. And once you do this, you become successful. All right? Okay, so in other words, if as a student you walk into a classroom at the end of the semester, you have to take stock of yourself. Where was I before the beginning of the semester? And where am I at the end of the semester? If you cannot do that as a student, then you are missing something. Okay? You are missing something. And one of the, maybe it's from the scientific mind, you know, based on my background as in the area of life sciences, because every time you walk into that classroom, I come out, I want to see, have I learned something that can affect the life of a human being? Knowing fully well that if I screw up, that person dies. So if you challenge yourself mentally that every time I go in, I have to learn something that can improve someone's life, that's great. The same thing with a mathematician, an engineer. You have to think, if I make the wrong calculation, see what is happening in Mexico with earthquake. Some houses, some buildings are standing, some buildings are falling. If you make the wrong calculation, all it takes is a slight miscalculation that could cause lives. It could be bridge that is falling apart, building that is falling apart. So every day in your life, you have to think through those things. Am I making the right choices? Am I learning? And that's where academic integrity also comes into play. We don't want our students to compromise. We want them to learn. Yes, Dr. Long.
I think it's also a good time to make a plug for English composition and
Very good.
based in humanities classes, since we're talking about emotional intelligence. And, you know, written communication is a big part of all of our lives. So classes where students are encouraged to write, you know,
we don't do all of our communication face-to-face. So we need to learn how to write well. And those kinds of classes are, in fact, process-based classes.
Very much so, very much so. If you cannot write, if you cannot read and write to comprehension, you cannot understand mathematics, you cannot understand life sciences. That is the hallmark of it, right? Your ability to read and write to comprehension. Of course, a lot of us can read, but can we read to comprehension?
But I'm also talking about the emotional intelligence you were talking about earlier in knowing how your message is going to be received by an audience.
Okay.
Something that's given a fair amount of attention in those classes.
In those classes that you guys teach. Okay, very good. Good to know that.
And Alex?
Yes, sir.
I think it's faculty have to be aware that how they taught 20 years ago, students learn differently. First off, they learn through technology now, which they didn't then. And I'm not saying that's good or bad, but it's just a fact. And so, way back when I was coming up, it was a talking head up there, and you didn't ask too many questions, especially some. You didn't ask any questions. You took notes, and that was it. But now, and I think that's very much the wrong approach, because for people to think, they need to be able to ask those questions and find out how their thinking fits with what's being taught.
Exactly, I agree. Again, and that's where every one of us, we have to evolve with the time. I don't believe, I know the age I came from, and I know I came from the age of no technology to where I am right now. I embrace technology very well. And I say this, if you are in this business of teaching, and you can't embrace technology, you are not very conversant with technology, then you don't belong, because you are teaching the generation of technology. So you have to evolve with the time. If you can't do that, then that's a problem, yes.
Well, one thing that comes across my mind is, with technology, with our methods, and with the idea that we're supposed to make them think. I think as a faculty member, it's really important to make sure that the way that I use technology doesn't replace think with cheat, right? With academic integrity. I mean, that's a real struggle to make sure that we're producing some kind of valid assessments and opportunities to learn rather than to, not learn. But look as if we have. That's a problem.
True.
That academic honesty and integrity is definitely something that people should take with them into their future careers. I think that's a
very good. I agree. Yeah. Right. Okay. We are going to have more discussion on this issue of academic redesigning and stuff like that. And when we come back, Dr. Cantrell is leading the group that are going to this conference. So when we come back, then we'll have a lot to talk about as a situation. Let me jump into something else before we run out of time. That is identifying students who are hungry or homeless on our campus. This has been a thing that we are trying to do to extend some help to some of our students. This involves everybody, staff, faculty, students, your ability to identify those students. We do have something in place on campus whereby students who are hungry, students who are homeless could get some help of some sort. Kaylan Drum, Doug Jefferson, John Tontine, Lisa Welch, and few more other people have been very much actively involved in this process. And along with our interim president, Brent Baker, he has been very supportive of the project that we're embarking on to help identify students who are hungry or homeless on our campus. So, I charge every faculty member, when you show up at 8 o'clock class in the morning, and you find one or two of your students falling asleep at 8 o'clock in the morning, before you go to label that student as lazy student, try to find out about that student. Did they sleep last night? Did they eat breakfast before they went to bed last night? Did they have, breakfast? Did they eat dinner before they went to bed last night? And did they have breakfast before coming to class that morning? Those are the questions you ask. You bring these students to you, identify, bring them close to you, and again, that's where emotional intelligence, trust. When you communicate with them effectively, they will open up to you. But if you don't have that ability to communicate with them effectively well, they might not reveal themselves to you. And again, if you are in doubt, then send those students to John Tontine, or send them to Kaylandrum, or send them to Lisa Welch. They will know where to direct them to. Dr. Welch, of course. Dr. Welch, do you have any comment on that? Anything you want to add to that part?
Just that you could, not only can you identify students, but you can also help out students. John has an emergency kind of kit list that he's accepting donations for. And if there is an emergency fund set up through the foundation and you're here to donate to that.
Okay, thank you. All right, and Coyote Call, yes?
So let's say, as a student, that we've uncovered somebody like that.
Mm-hmm.
But how do we don't want to really single them out and say, hey, let's go talk to John. How could we help them out without making them feel like they're singled out and they're in need?
Very good. You can just take the name of that student, if you know who they are, talk to them, take their name, and take the name to John. John will come and talk to them. We will find them. Or bring them to me or Dr. Wells, or any of those people. We will find those students and we will make sure they get the help they need, yes.
What if the person doesn't like the way that they do that? Like, for say, like you find out a person that is poor or has money, how about you don't know what they've done before they got to college? Like, people have night shifts that go straight to college. People do that. So people don't want to say that because they don't want to be, like, they don't want to be singled out. Yeah, so they do that just because of it. But people don't want to, what I'm trying to say is people don't want to get help. And sometimes that hurts the student and the faculty also.
Okay. Well, if the student doesn't want to get help, there's nothing we can do about it. But we are here to help those students that truly need help. But everything is done confidential and unanimously. We're not revealing the student name. We're not even broadcasting it, so the students can go on their own. Nobody even knows what they are going there for, except for Mr. Tontine, who will know the student and be able to help them. So again, it's a way to help students to succeed. Because if the students decide that they don't want those help and they struggle through and it affects them academically, then that's counterproductive. So we would like to see our students succeed. What we are embarking upon is the success of those students. Even if it's one student that we can identify and save that one student from dropping out of school and become successful, then that's something great. All right? Okay. And coyote call, very quickly, coyote call is when you identify somebody doing something good around campus. It could be a student helping another student, or faculty helping student, or student helping faculty, or staff helping faculty, or anybody helping anybody on campus, or doing something good for the college. Then you can just go to my WC area and then give them a coyote call. There is a form there you can fill out and recognize them. If you don't know how to get it, then you can call Lisa Martin at the Human Resources Office. She will be more than glad to help you. And I would like to say that we have some coyote call for the semester so far. We have Tammy White. She got a coyote call for exemplary teamwork. So Tammy White, bravo to you. And we also have a coyote call for John Tontine for inspirational integrity. So those two individuals were recognized for their good deeds around the campus this semester. That's fine. So it could be you tomorrow. So lend a helping hand to your fellow human being, to your fellow coyotes, and you will make Weatherford College a better place. Any other question or comment?
I'll make a comment.
Yes.
That it might not just be a student that's falling on hard times too, that we could recognize as a faculty member and could do something to help.
Oh, definitely.
Because it happens from time to everyone.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I agree. Yes. Definitely. All right. After our students, let me reach out to you. Do you have any more comment? Let me say this. This forum here is the Dean's Forum. I've been moderating this, but anybody can be the moderator. If you come up with a topic of interest, we will allow you to take charge and be the moderator of it. Student, faculty, staff, anybody. But we just want the name to remain the Dean's Forum. And that's the way to, for us, a way of us to communicate across campus. And hopefully, we can reach a lot of people with a lot of information that ordinarily will not get to you. So we want to use this forum to do that. So think of something. I thank you for showing up today. This is the most students we've had in a forum. I thank you guys for showing up, students, and of course, faculty and staff. And we look forward to another forum sometime next month. If it is the last Monday of the month, it is the Dean's Forum. So thank you very much, and I will see you again next month. Thank you.